Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. This is part two of Sumer. We'll do part three sometime next week. I'm gonna get things adjustment. Yeah, my wiring's messed up on this laptop, so I hope I get a new charge plug this week. So you know how it is, but don't you worry. But it is what it is. But everything is working fine, and I am going to talk about Summer Part Two. Is kind of crazy. It is a crazy read, yes, and I gotta see if it's anything graphical and ziggurats, and so we're talking about writing. Okay, it ain't nothing graphical. Okay, we're gonna stick to part two and part three. It's like I'm gonna give you the reading and all this other stuff. So straight into it's 10:05. Okay, we're gonna go straight into part two, and I'm gonna share the screen. This is hell. It's hell charging this damn thing. Once it's charged, it's charged. But hopefully, I get a new charger soon. And don't ask me about it. You know, I'll determine that. It's a lot of things on this September. I'm gonna have enough space, and then I'll record more. But I ain't gonna record as much. Y'all get used to these now. By next year, I'm not hardly ever recording again. I don't do every other live stream and just keep it. This is it's give me views. Uploads. It's gonna be random. Just give you a heads up. Okay. Um, let's see something real quick. Okay, we're gonna maximize the screen for just a bit so I can read it. Okay. Sumerian cities. This is part two, Sumer 2. Ancient man and his first civilization. Shouts out to Real History, www.com for this information. Help me always with this channel and the proper research. There's other research out there besides you can counter it, whatever. But this is close to real historical artifacts. They show archaeology, all this stuff. Good website. There's other websites come close to it, but it ain't that much. Okay, the cities of Sumer, first built around 4000 BCE, or should I say BC or BCE, maybe before provide the world's first examples of genius, urban centers of large size. In these early cities, especially the Iridu, Urak, and people first manifest the high degrees of cooperative effort and necessary to make urban life possible. But both of these cities were reflections of this cooperation. Yeah, cooperation in their dikes, walls, and irrigation canals and temples. Their efficiency of agricultural systems made it possible for free large members of people from working in the land. But these people were now free to engage in specialized occupations. The early Sumerian cities were characterized by a high degree of social and economic diversity, which gave rise to artisans, merchants, priests, bureaucrats, and for the rest of the first time in history, professional soldiers, like high quality military, like private military structures. They did. Sumerian culture is still popular to this day based off what this said right here. But almost constant occurrence of the war among the city states of Sumer, and spurred to the development of the military technology and the techniques for beyond that found anywhere else at the world. That's facts. They did. The modernized military, what you see today, came from Sumerian cultures. The Romans did, enhanced it later on, and then what you call today with the Third Reich of Germans, and actually the United States of America is, already know, we call that the fourth, what, which it is. But some people say it ain't. They try to say it's peaceful, but who cares? This is an empire. It's a culture that people love America so much. I understand, but they took a lot of stuff from Sumerian culture too. A lot of cultures did. That's why a lot of countries have technology in their military, futuristic stuff. This is the first group of darker people in that region had technology, and this is fact right here. One of the duties of the Mesopotamian king was to care for the gods and restore and rebuild their temples. But in the late third millennium BCE, rulers in the southern Mesopotamia, after they depicted themselves carrying out displays the task from the form of the foundation page. But this this Pisces task in the form of the foundation of pegs. Foundation pegs was buried into the foundation of the buildings and magically protect them and preserve the buildings to the magically protect them and preserve the buildings of names for prosperity. But in this case, the peg is supported by a god. Mesopotamian gods are usually depicted wearing horned horned headdresses. That's what they put out, right? So we're going to show you in a minute. These are idols we're going to see. Okay, the main cities of Sumer were Kish, Urk, in the Bible, Erech. They'll try to say in the Bible is erect, Urk or Erech, Super, Ashkat, Ashak, Larik, Nippur, Adab, Yuma, Lagash, Lagash, Bad Tibria, Larsa, and others. Each Each these city states were compared to the walled city and by the surrounding villages and the land. Each city worshiped its own deity, whose temple was a central structure of the city. Political power originally belonged to the to belong to the citizens, as rivalry and wars between the various cities states increased. Such adopted the institution of kingship. So, as have had ready, the prominent leadership within a crisis arose. And that's right. They have different names, like it said. So, foundation of Peg of Ur and Baal, 2000 to 80 BC. The foundation of Peg of U Namun, 2100 BCE. And the foundation of Peg of Gideon, 2100 BCE, around the same time this was built. So these are idols and they have their own deities. Yes, it's Sumer is a culture that you know. And then the Ziggurats. We're going to talk about the Ziggurats. Let me look at something for a minute. I'm going to minimize the screen for a minute. And sinus is acting up. It always does this when I'm recording. God damn, bro. Hate that shit. Okay, we clicked on the Ziggurat and its culture and all that. Okay. Okay, this is good. Back to okay, this is good. This is good. Okay, 8 minutes. Okay. Oh, fuck. Thank God I got that out of my system. Okay, the Ziggurats. Yeah, the Ziggurats. Unlike the Egyptians, the Sumerians did not build pyramids. Instead, they built ziggurats. These ziggurats were built structures made of brick and comparable to the size to a pyramid, but in appearance, they resemble a step pyramid. But they were not tombs, they were temples. Sometimes with the terraces and the planted with trees and scrubs and flowers and similar to the use of pyramid temples in the Americas, which you see in the Olmec, the ziggurats and what they are. And we will get to this part in a minute. More history. Okay, pretty much all that is known to early Sumerian dynasties is from Sumerian epic stories and the Sumerian king list, written about 2100 BCE, but according to the king list, one of the earliest historical documents, 8 kings of Sumer reigned before the famous flood of the, they said, the Old Testament, of the Old Tetragrammaton, which you would call the it's in what you're in your Bibles, the Old Testament, known as the Genesis Genesis to Malachi, the Tetragrammaton. This is actual facts, okay? The fame when they talk about these stories, and this is evidence right here. But a great part of the method of dating the civilizations through archaeological record, a great flood of the Euphrates River, which happened about 3200 BCE. But this is very risky science, though. For it, the more likely that the flood the Sumerians were referring to the King's List was the ocean flood, which raised the water level of the Gulf and it submerged the cities on the coast. This is a ziggurat right here. This is their little thing, but we're gonna get to the picture of it in a minute. This is giving you a demonstration. Okay, the ziggurat. We're back on it to how it's built and how it's looked. This is a sketch of the Hindu temple of ziggurat. Since since very ancient times, man has tried to get as close as possible to his gods. But the people of southern Mesopotamia and Elam, later the Americas, did this building monumental structures, but that reach upward to the human, to the house their gods, and to be the temples of their gods worship. But the pyramids of Egypt, tombs and not temples, though human bodies are almost always found buried beneath the ancient temple structures, but sometimes a great many. Here will we trace the history of the great ziggurat of Ur, beginning in about 5200 BCE. But the first ziggurat was built, and it was believed to be resembled the later Eridu ziggurat, which was built below. Oh, I mean, picture below, but was built in 4100 BCE. That's a long time ago. And yeah, you see the sketch, and here's the foundation of the Namun, depicting the king as a temple builder of the basket of the earth, and it makes bricks. It was made for the burial in the foundations of the temple, but the copper pegs acted as a record for the pottery. Yeah, the pottery, and to receive the God's blessing. Okay. Over many thousand, that's in the picture right here. Over many thousand years, the successful kings had added to the ziggurat, so that by the time the King Ur Namun, 13 layers of temples have been added within the material from each previous edition, but used as a platform for the next, but one on top of the other. But Ur Namun, wishing to build the greatest ziggurat, but yet built directed to the previous construction, but be dug away to form the platform for the new ziggurat. So yeah, the ziggurats were temples similar to the pyramids, but they're not really tombs, but they're temples for people. You know, it could be burials, it could be anything. Look at the ziggurat brick and the writing and the codes and all that constructions. Ziggurat solid made from brick. You know, it's saying the same thing. I'm not gonna go into detail. And it says did not live to the completion to ziggurat. It was completed by his son Sulagi about 2000 BCE, and ziggurat was dedicated to the Akkadian moon god Sin, and was the Etemenigira, which means house whose foundation creates terror. See, that's what they wanted to have right here. That's the foundation. I don't know if it's still out there, but we'll see. It's 1920s. That's what they're talking about. 1984, the British colonial, J.E. Taylor began the excavation of the ziggurat area. Taylor found 4 city cylinders, one each corner of the ziggurat, which identifies the site as Ur. But these cylinders were written for the Babylonian king Namadeus, who resigned from about, I mean, who reigned from about 555 BCE. I talked about this before on live streams before from 3 years ago, and to 539 BCE. The text on these cylinders revealed the ziggurat has been built by Namadeus. Okay. The steel of Nemesis and close up is right. Okay. This is the cylinders and read all this, and you see like the Babylonian Temple Tower, and that's the whole culture of it. And then you see a lot. So you see the military going up there, looking at research. They go. So basically, this is a part of it, and that's a part of the part two. We talk about the Ziggurats, and we're gonna talk about Sumerian periods. How much time we got? How much time we got? Got 15 minutes. Okay, it ain't gonna be long. This is gonna be not a long one, but I got things to do in the area, so get this knocked out as much as possible, and try to get this recording done. Notice should take into the Sumerian king list, and then after list of kings' names, length of the reign, we got to the following summary. In the cities and by kings, I mean 8 kings, but they ruled for 241,200 years ago when they flooded, overswept, that have always was dating. These first civilizations were on the shaky ground, but we don't know what to make to those fantastic numbers. But we have to spur some really interesting religious cults around the world. It is a summary story, but the epic Gilgamesh, you hear the word, the epic Gilgamesh that was first introduced to Noah and the Great Flood. We noted that this time the Sumer is the original home of some of the people who will later become known as Hebrews. They will say known as the Hebrews, you know, at the time. But consequently, there will be a similarities between Sumerian stories and Hebrew stories. Yeah, it's a lot of similarities because this culture, Sumerian culture, has been around a long time. They could be known as, I believe, they're Hamites in the Bible, which we would call Adams. That's a whole nother story on that. I'm not going to get into that. The Sumerian culture is very powerful, as we talked about. They don't exist anymore. You already know why. Depicting the Gilgamesh taming lions, cylinder seal impressions of depicting the Gilgamesh lions. Okay. The Assyrian copy script, the Assyrians and all that, we ain't gonna get into that. And it's indicated king lists after the flood, various city states through war, becoming the temporary set power until about 2800 BCE. But when they were united under the rule of the one king, Jakur Kish, nothing is known for its first 16 kings of Jakur's dynasty until Etana. Yeah, Etana. Until Etana, the 17th king, it was had he was also, according to ancient Sumerian epic Etana, with the aid of eagle, and that he had helped was carried high up into the sky. But Etana reached to the heaven and prostrated himself before the gods. But the table is broken, so we don't know how the story ends. So they don't know how the story ends with this person right here, and these are the idols and things. My battery, the charge is acting crazy. I have to don't bend down on it. Okay. Because I'm recording. An event permanent that the Sumerian king, one of the cities that gained, uh, defeating others and thus making himself the king of the lands. But the next thing another city would do there is etc. Continuing from the king's list. But Etana's dynasty was defeated by the Macagacier king of Eana, or the T is silent. It's actually pronounced Eana. They was trying to say, or Etana. I say Etana, but it's Eana. Okay, king of Eana was succeeded by his son, Immarkar, 2650 BCE, but it's apparently under the reign of Inimakar that the people of Eana has built themselves a new city named the Ung-Urk. The Ung-Urk. So we talked about earlier the Ung-Urk cities. All right. And then you see the Un-Ur and the Ur people and all this other stuff. So it's pretty much the same. We're not going to read the rest of it. So the king of Urk, 3500 BCE. So there's the priest, talks about him as well, and Tower Bible and all this other stuff. You see all that. I'm not gonna read the rest of it. This is pretty much it. Part two, not much to say. I've talked about this before. Part three, you see extension of it, as you could tell, and it's 20 minutes in, so it's a little lengthy and all this other stuff. We're gonna stop sharing the screen. So basically, part two is talking about the Ziggurats. I just want to talk about the history of Sumer, and we're talking about little Tower of Babel, just a little there and there. But sometimes you just got to know that this stuff happens all the time. So me personally, I'm doing a series on it, and I'll do a part three. I think it'll be next month because I know we're into this month, and be on the lookout for that Wednesday as well. But this one is just a part two to sum up what part one was, and we talked about. I think part one we talked about. Let me see here for a minute because my sinus is acting up right now when I'm recording. I fucking hate that shit. That is annoying. So part one, we talked about modern Iraq, right? We talked about the soldiers and shit like that. The beginning of Sumer. And when we talk about the history of Sumer, I try get away from the racial shit. Just scroll down to Sumer culture or Sumerian culture, right? Kingship. We talked about that. Religion, the culture. Basically, culture number one. Number two, we're talking about the Ziggurats. And yeah, this laptop's kind of old, but I need a new charger. So you know how it goes. I'm struggling with a new charger, but that's okay. We got this done in recording. I just don't like the fact that a lot of these goddamn noties. My sinus is really fucking with me at this point. It is really fucking with me at this point. But we talk about the Ergina or something like that, modern Iraq again. Lagash, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. So it's like, yeah, this shit is pissing me off. Like, I'm just tired of it right now. Hate my cell phone sometimes, but it gets on my nerves. I know I'm doing semi business on the side, but it's pissing me off. Like, but talking about this, Sumer 2 is kind of like great. So with that, shalom to the people of Israel, shalom to the Most High Yah, of course. I mean, praise to the Most High Yah, praise to the East as always, shalom. Until next time, and I'll see you on the part three on the